Hi, I'm Gillian Skitter, and I'm here to talk about the scrapping of the racial classifications in South Africa, a suggestion put forth by none other than the IRR, the Institute for Race Relations. First of all, this is not about equality. This is about white privilege and protecting white privilege. One would think declassifying race is a great thing. I mean, that's what anti-racism is all about. That's what critical race theory works towards. However, it's a systemic and a structural issue in this country. We cannot possibly afford to scrap race classifications at this juncture when absolutely nothing has changed in this country for the majority of people classified as Black African. They claim that if we stop naming race, racism will go away. That's what they say. And this has been the whole ruse since the Rainbow Nation color revolution first started. Sounds progressive, not progressive, it's regressive. It's trying to pretend that the majority of Black South Africans are not disadvantaged, still disadvantaged. Yes, we have an upper middle class and, the elite, a Black contingency in the society, African Black. We need to differentiate, as far as differentiating between Indian colored and African Black, because African Black people still sit at the very bottom of the ladder. And incrementally, people get more privileges the higher you go up the ladder of the race classifications. That's what one wants to undo, but you cannot undo it while white monopoly capital still holds all the cards, all the trump cards at this point. Excuse the pun, which is not a pun. South Africa never really left apartheid. We are still in apartheid. That is very clear. And it's becoming more entrenched as we go along. 2024-25 has re-entrenched apartheid, and it's also re-colonized South Africa. We were on a decolonization trajectory, and what did the system do? What did the white monopoly capital system do? Along with global capital, global Western capital, they made sure to turn the clock right back. Any form of progress, any form of social progress has now been undone, and we are likely to see it being undone even more by the GNU, the Government of National Unity, which is ultra-conservative, and which President Ramaphosa led us directly into. Now you get rid of the race relations classifications in this country, and you take away all the rights of a peoples that were oppressed by a system, and you hand them back to the white people. You scrap BEE and you put in, what is it that they want to do? Let me just read this here. The IRR says we should stop using race categories in government and policy. They claim that if we stop naming race, racism will simply go away. But racism doesn't disappear because you stop talking about it. That's like saying sexism ends if we stop talking about women. If we stopped identifying gender and gender rights, would maternity leave still exist? Would there be gender rights programs? Would there be, historically women have to be brought up into CEO positions, etc.? Because historically they have been ignored for those kind of positions. Think about that in the racial terms. Black people are expected to be equal to all these groups above them that have more privileges than them to this day. So why would anybody want race classification to end at this point in history? The only time race classification is not relevant is when we live in an equal society, when there's no such thing as white monopoly capital. And yes, I will use that term. It's a term. It's a term. It does not mean anything other than what it means. There's a white monopoly capital problem in this country. It hasn't trickled down. It hasn't spread out. People are still landless. People are still jobless. People are still homeless. They've got no proper sanitation, no service delivery. People are hanging on to a thread at the edge of a white monopoly capital neoliberal system. And they are expected now to be seen as equal to whites. This is just a trick. It's a trick. Do not fall for this trick. You need racial classifications in this country until all races are equal, until we do not have the highest Gini coefficient in the world. Imagine people at the bottom of this ladder that was created in apartheid. And yes, one wants to get rid of a ladder that was created in apartheid, but how do you do that when apartheid still exists? The IRR and some parties in the new government of national unity are acting like we've already achieved equality. They say it's time to move on. But for most people in this country, there's nothing to move on from because injustice never stopped. Instead of supporting policies like Black Economic Empowerment, BEE, which is put in place to try and give Black people a leg up after centuries of being pushed down, the IRR wants to replace it with a new system called EED, Economic Empowerment for the Disadvantaged. On the surface, it sounds nice. Help the disadvantaged not based on race, but on poverty. But here's the trick. Without race as a factor, even wealthy people can claim to be disadvantaged if they fall on hard times. This means resources meant to help fix racial injustice could go back to those who have already benefited from apartheid. That is the trick. This isn't just a bad idea. And to read again, it's a calculated move. It's about locking in white wealth and power while pretending to care about justice. It's a classic bait and switch. Pretend to be non-racial, but really erase the struggles of Black people. Erase history, erase apartheid's legacy, erase the truth. And this isn't happening in isolation. It's part of a bigger trend. White nationalist groups like AfriForum are also pushing stories about how white people in South Africa are now the victims. They claim farm murders are part of genocide. It's nonsense, it's bullshit, but it's dangerous bullshit because it shifts the story. Suddenly the people who still have the most land, the most money and power are painting themselves as oppressed. So what do we do? What do we do? We speak out. We push back. We tell the truth even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable. We don't let those who benefited from apartheid write the rules, and we don't let the language of progress be used to protect privilege, which is what the whole Rainbow Nation has been all about, fooling everybody with the language of progress when no progress has happened. Just always look behind the words. Behind the words, especially in a neoliberal dispensation, words are used to trick people, not to enforce progress. They are there to make you think that it's progressive when no progress has happened. I wrote an article a few months ago when the IRR first put out this bullshit strategy, and read there exactly what I mean. I know it's easy to think, oh, but we don't want racism. However, race classification and getting away with it is going to enforce racism. It's going to make racism worse. And I'm not talking about one-on-one racism. I'm talking about systemic racism. I'm talking about undoing, pretending structural racism, historical racism never happened. Don't let this happen. Start a petition today. Do not let the race classifications be gotten rid of until equality and the land is returned and jobs are given and the resources stay with the people in order to build the people, not to just use them and discard them, the people, as waste in this terrible system. I'm out of here. Thank you very much for listening. Until next time. Don't forget to like and subscribe and help me keep this channel alive. And follow me on Twitter at JillianSkitter1, on Facebook, on Instagram, and also in my column on the IOL opinion section.